It's the Growing for Market podcast.
We're not going to be competitive with flowers coming in from South America, but the quality is vastly different, and what we can provide and what we offer is vastly different. It's like roses being grown for packing dry are not going to have the same quality as tulips that are grown and picked and put in water within 24 hours and kept, at the right temperature. And we've got huge coolers. So yeah, I think that we don't get too much pushback on our pricing. I think the florists know what we have, and what's really cool, the age of Pinterest and people kind of having more influence on their design and what they want. We're able to keep up with the trends and be ahead of the trends. And our growers are, filling in a lot of really cool product that maybe wouldn't be able to be mass produced and for cheap.
Hello, and welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, where we talk about growing, marketing, and the business of growing flowers and vegetables for local markets. I'm Andrew Mefford, your host and the editor of Growing for Market magazine, proudly celebrating 35 years in 2026 as the magazine by and for vegetable and flower market farmers. If you're enjoying the podcast, just wait till you see the magazine. Go to growingformarket.com for more. Also, if you could give us a follow and a rating, it really helps other like-minded people find the podcast. And now, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. Most CSAs don't lose members on price. They lose them because their systems break. In a recent 70-minute panel, 3 veteran CSA operators serving hundreds to thousands of members break down production planning, fulfillment, retention, and what they'd change for 2026. They talk honestly about what fails when you scale, how they protect member trust, and what actually drives renewals. Download the full conversation at farmhand.partners/GFM and see how the fastest growing farms are building smarter businesses. That's farmhand.partners/GFM. Farming is hard. Running it shouldn't be. Tend helps you plan your season, map your farm, and track every task from seed to sale. No spreadsheets, no guesswork, just seamless workflows. Tend is the all-in-one farm management platform that brings together planning, field mapping, fulfillment, real-time inventory, sales, labor, traceability, and accounting in one easy platform. Built for small market gardens, CSAs, and large diversified farms. Get started with a free account at tend.com. That's TEND.com. No credit card required. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Carrie Read to the Growing for Market podcast, and we're here to talk about the past, present, and future of the Seattle Growers Market and flower cooperatives in general. The market is a farmer-owned cooperative established in 2011 to create a central marketplace for local flower farmers to sell directly to the floral trade in the greater Seattle area, and recently rebranded from the original name of the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market. Carrie is the general manager of the market, and we will be talking about where the market is about 15 years in and what the future looks like. So, without further ado, welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, Carrie.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. We're very happy to have you. I really love Seattle. It's about a little over 20 years ago, believe it or not, I worked on a farm that was about 35 miles east of Seattle. And so one of the fun things about being able to work there is that when we got done with the week on the farm, we could go into the city. In fact, one of the other apprentices on the farm had an apartment in the city. And so that was a really cool way for us to go on a low budget, on a farm apprentice salary, get into the city and, have a totally different perspective, because the farm that we were on was out there on the Snoqualmie, so it was kind of like opposite environments. It was like peaceful and on the river. Well, I mean, the farm could be kind of noisy, but it was like a very rural environment, and then we could pop into Seattle. So I enjoy thinking about you guys in there selling your flowers. But so more relevant to today, I had the pleasure of meeting one of your founding co-op members, so Diane Sukovat, at the ASCFG conference back in January. And one of the trends that I picked up on there is the rise of flower farming cooperatives. I was surprised by how many flower growers I met there who are either already involved in cooperatives or in the process of starting one, which is what led to this interview. It's my guess that flower co-ops represent a reclaiming of market power by local growers in the wake of the decimation of the domestic floral industry by subsidized imported blooms from South America that started in the early 1990s as part of the Andean Trade Preference Act, which subsidized flower production from some South American countries in an attempt to cut down on the drug trade. But I could be wrong about that. So that's why I wanted to have you on and talk about this important trend. So before we get into the speculating, can you tell us a bit about why the co-op started in the first place?
So the co-op was founded in 2011, and it served as a way for a collaborative outlet for multiple growers so that they were able to focus more on the farming aspect rather than spending 50% or greater amounts of time trying to farm those leads and develop relationships and delivering and taking orders. So the purpose of the market was to kind of have everything together in one place, one location. And what's really cool about where the market is located is it's in the hub of where other floral industry businesses are. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop area in Georgetown where we're located. Originally, my understanding is that it started as more of like a farmer's market setup where there was individual stalls and the growers kind of managed their own sales and their setup. But even that was beneficial so that there was consistent presence of local flowers in one place. But over the years, it's developed into a thriving market that has a staff of 10 full-time people, and the staff takes care of all aspects of marketing, ordering, and deliveries, and we even run logistics and have weekly and bi-weekly pickup routes so that the growers don't even have to necessarily drive their product into the market themselves. They're welcome to, and we do charge for that service, but it's not as expensive as it would be like if you were paying a separate or outside logistics company.
Oh, cool. Okay, I didn't realize you had that much staff. Yeah, you guys have a lot going on. Okay, so I have questions about the logistics of how all that stuff works, but just to keep it broad here at the beginning, I'm curious. I mean, was the idea that if you put a bunch of growers in one place that you're likely to get more orders from florists? Because I'm just thinking like a lot of small, medium-sized flower growers who might be in our audience is right. They're growing whatever they can on their farm and they're maybe sending out a availability list to florists and things like that. And we all know that there's also bigger companies importing flowers that probably have a bigger availability list or have year-round availability on a lot of things. And so unfortunately, we all know that a lot of the floral buyers are probably just going to go to the sources where they can like make one order and get a bunch of different things on a regular basis. And so was that the idea or continue to be the idea behind the market? Sort of by banding together, you'll be able to access bigger floral markets?
Yeah. And so the variety is increased by having the diverse farmers or growers because we're quite regional. So we go from almost all the way up to Canada is where a couple of our farms are located. And then there's several down along and throughout we're on the western side of the mountains. So all the way down to Southern Oregon, Central Oregon. So what's cool is that the different microclimates kind of allow for us to have extended availability, like 2 weeks, the earlier crops will be in one microclimate, and then you get another 2 weeks and so on. So by having this kind of geographic range, it kind of also supports the ability to increase the consistency or improve the consistency of what we can offer. And then obviously the quality and the base life is extended because it's literally within 24 hours or so of picking or harvesting. It's packed in buckets of water rather than dry packed, like, more of the larger floral companies do. So yeah, there's some advantages to it. I think the quality and diversity and the customer service that we offer is really exceptional. And we are co-located with a larger, more national floral company. And we see it not as like they're our competition, because what we offer is quite a bit different. Yeah, and we do, like, in the slower season from like November through about March, we are purchasing in a higher amount of our product from California, BC, and then we even get some imports from a Hawaii grower. So we have found ways to kind of keep the customers, the florists, coming back, even when it's, not so much the height of production for us.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, because I didn't realize that you were buying in from outside of the Pacific Northwest region. But I can also imagine that probably helps having year-round offerings. Is it just like to keep people coming back? Because I know once people leave, sometimes it's hard to get them to come back. I mean, is that the idea behind having the outside of Pacific Northwest offerings?
Yeah, and I think we're pretty particular about who we import from, and I'm sure that's been refined over the years. But yeah, my understanding is that was the reasoning by, to keep the customers coming back. Also, we want to maintain your staffing. You don't want to have like having to lay people off for the winter and then rehiring, and you know what I mean? So it's like good for everybody, both our employees, our members. And there are some members that are still growing stuff or have offerings, like eucalyptus. It's a year-round product. We also have quite a bit of drieds. So that is also sold, throughout the year. So yeah, I think the offerings in the winter and having it supplemented by external non-member growers is kind of to keep the hook, keep those folks coming back and remember us.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that does make sense. Do you think it's a selling point for your customers that the blooms are local? And if so, do you get any kind of premium for that? Or are your blooms priced the same as similar imported crops?
Yeah, I think a major selling point is the local and the quality and the diversity of offerings that we have. We have about 800 different line items throughout the year. So there's a great, pretty robust inventory.
Yeah, that's great.
So the pricing structure and we do, look at what the market can bear and that kind of thing, but we do have, our pricing is usually a bit higher because of the longer lasting base life, the high quality, and the uniqueness of the different offerings that we have. But then, we do keep an eye out on what the market can bear, and we're not going to be competitive with flowers coming in from South America, but the quality is vastly different, and what we can provide and what we offer is vastly different. It's like roses being grown for packing dry are not going to have the same quality as tulips that are grown and picked and put in water within 24 hours and kept, at the right temperature. And we've got huge coolers. So yeah, I think that we don't get too much pushback on our pricing. I think the florists know what we have, and what's really cool, the age of Pinterest and people kind of having more influence on their design and what they want. We're able to keep up with the trends and be ahead of the trends. And our growers are, filling in a lot of really cool product that maybe wouldn't be able to be mass produced and for cheap.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I mean, I'm glad to know you're getting a little premium for that. I think that's as it should be, but I also, I wasn't sure, I also know it's a very competitive market. So, but I'm glad you're getting a premium. Can you tell me if the business structure of the market is a collective or a co-op or something else entirely? Like, I don't even know exactly what that means. That might be the second part of my question, but I know there's an actual business structure as a cooperative. And I know some people who operate cooperatively are actually like an LLC or an S Corp or some other structure. And I'm asking for if people are out there like thinking about starting a co-op or anything, like, do you know what the structure is of the business?
Yes. So we are a cooperative, and we have a board, and we have annual elections, and we have 7 board seats, and every 2 years people transfer off. So you maintain some consistency because half of them are on in those off years when people are transitioning out. We do have bylaws, and we do have twice a year, we have biannual membership meetings. So we present the financials and all of that. So yeah, I know that it is a cooperative, and their bylaws are well written, and the way that the board operates is very official. And I appreciate that. It's a lot of, it's unpaid volunteer work, but they are members. I think in the past, they did have some industry experts, be it florists, or I think Deborah Prinzing was actually on the board at one time. But now it's just strictly kept to members who are also the growers.
Okay, so you have a board and then your growers are the members. With the cooperative structure, is there like a profit that's redistributed to members, or is it more like, I assume there's some kind of fee for selling through the market? Obviously, you got 10 people working for the market. Like there's considerable, overhead there paying all those people. Like, I guess my question is, does whatever fees the members pay, does that simply go to paying the salaries of all those people who support the work of the cooperative, or do they get like a dividend or something like that at the end of the year?
So the way that it works to become a member, you usually start as a consignor, and consignors generally tend to be growing things that the member growers are not growing. So they fill kind of a need.
Okay.
And after they've been a consignor for a year or two, then they can apply to become a provisional member. And provisional members they'll be provisional for a year, and the board has to agree to welcome them as a provisional member. And they get to kind of try us out, and we get to try them out, and like make sure that their consistency, their product is consistent. And, same with us, like, does this work for them as an option to sell through us? And then when you're a consignor or a provisional grower, the market takes 40% of commission. And then when you become a full member, the market takes 30%. So the growers get to keep 70% of their sales. And that 30% or 40%, that's going to the operations and overhead there. But then ideally we would have dividends. And that is something, when I was interviewed and, when I got hired, it's definitely been mentioned several times, because they haven't been able to see dividends quite yet. Because I think there's still there's always expenses or these one-offs. Like, we installed this huge cooler and then we had an electrical issue that needed to be repaired. So there's been some hiccups here and there, but the goal is, yes, they would get dividends. I did forget to mention that when you join as a full member, you have to pay a $2,000 one-time membership fee, basically. And I think that goes, towards operation. But, with 19 growers, the bulk of the working capital for, salaries and keeping the lights on and the rental of the space, et cetera, it's basically coming from the commission that we charge.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can see how that's very valuable, because those are like the sales, and obviously the infrastructure and stuff is things that the growers would have to be paying for out of their own business if it weren't held collectively. So
yeah.
I imagine that it takes a lot off of growers' plates. I assume it's up to the individual growers whether they want to just completely do sales through the co-op, or I assume some of them may have other sales platforms where they still need to be doing like their own sales and stuff like that. But I mean, I can just see how a team of 10 people could do a lot of things for a farm that a farmer would otherwise have to do themselves.
Yeah, that's the beauty. They get to focus more on the farming. And if they want to develop some other income streams, outside the market, that's perfectly fine. We don't limit that. So, yeah. We have some growers that only sell through us. We have the wide variety of different approaches, smaller farms, I don't know. I don't think there's any that are like hundreds of acres, but we've got, small backyard, less than a half acre farmer. And then we've got, the larger ones.
Uh-huh. Okay. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. Seven Springs Farm Supply has been the market gardener's supply company for over 30 years. Their catalog includes a complete selection of organic fertilizers, pest and disease controls, growing mixes, and cover crop seed. Their experienced team is ready to help you problem solve and find the right solution for your farm and your goals. Seven Springs is committed to providing growers with superior products and service because they understand that their success depends on your success. Request a free paper catalog and learn more at sevenspringsfarmsupply.com. Seven Springs Farm Supply, the market gardener's supply company.
Kate here from Foraged and Sown.
Tanner Johnson, Theo's Harvest.
Emily at Frayed Knot Farm.
David Morkel from Morkel Meadows.
Having healthy transplants is really important.
And since we started using tilth, Our plants look so much better.
Year after year just makes everything easier.
The release of the nutrients in the compost base, we find the amount of juice perfect.
They're coming out of the nursery so much faster.
Germinate well, but also build really healthy rootstock.
Healthy plants, whether they're just staying in the cell trays for a couple of weeks, or if the plants are staying in pots for a couple of months.
We are able to have a little bit more flexibility in when we get the transplants out. Seedlings can last a lot longer in the trays without having to add fertility.
I just can't say enough.
And that's what tilth soil is for us, is it's that top tier tool, and it's been exactly what we need it to be. It's been forgiving. It's been scalable.
It's just been a great partnership.
It's been a total game changer. We're super grateful for the work they're doing at Tilth.
If you grow for market, you know performance is everything. That's why so many farmers are turning to Burpee's Farmers Market. Dedicated to professional growers, Burpee is now offering non-GMO seeds in larger quantities, bred and selected for standout flavor, strong yields, and the kind of visual appeal your customers crave. All farmers market varieties are trialed at Burpee's Research Farm in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, where expert horticulturalists test for germination rate, vigor, disease resistance, high yield, and consistency, things that make a difference in the field and to your bottom line. The seed assortment includes USDA certified organic varieties, Burpee bred classics, heirlooms, and exciting new introductions. Burpee's been doing this for 150 years, and they're still creating new varieties with growers like you in mind. You can check out the full lineup at burpee.com/farmersmarket. That's burpee.com/farmersmarket. And now back to the show. And how is inventory managed? Do growers deliver crops on speculation at all, or are they only delivering what has already been sold?
We do both. So we use local farmer marketplace, LFM, and our growers they'll load up on the platform their availability. And then we have a team member who does special ordering and advanced ordering. And so she'll help work with the florists and the designers and that kind of thing to make sure and see what they need and what might need to be ordered in, but generally going across all of the growers to source materials. And people can set up a customer account, and so they can just do all of their ordering on the web, like with what the growers have put up, and they've got, like 20 bunches of ranunculus in whatever color the customer can purchase off there. Then we do also have quite a bit of inventory that's brought on spec. And so it's monitored. We've got the floor, that we're constantly monitoring and moving product and seeing if there's a gap and reaching out to our growers and being like, okay, this is low. We could probably sell more of this, this coming week. So we're, put it on the truck when it's there. Or, does anybody have this available? There was a big order and we'd like to get it from you guys. So it's quite dynamic, the process. And so it's a combination of both. Long story short, both.
Okay. All right. I remember seeing some pictures of the market, and this may have been a long time ago when the market was more like farmers market style, where there was almost like some retail space. I don't know. You guys may even be in a different location now than when those pictures were. In fact, I think I've done a story in Growing for Market that was talking about the market a number of years ago. What I'm trying to get at here is, do florists come in and browse what's available, or is it all just like online ordering now?
No, it's both.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have people come in and, pick up their pre-order and then leave that cart to be checked off and make sure that everything's there and quality's great. And then they'll go and shop in our cooler off the floor. So we have about 5,000 square feet for us. I said we're kind of co-located with another supplier. So we have 5,000 square feet or so for us, and about half of that is cooler. So yeah, and if you get on our
that's a big cooler.
Instagram, it's huge. So there's it's just this huge refrigerated room, and it's beautiful. It smells great.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
How do you handle inventory? Because growers are going to tend to have the same crops at the same time. Can anybody bring whatever they want? That's
a great question. So we have something called market share opportunity. And it's kind of a way of ranking member growers by their ability to produce certain crops consistently and at higher volumes. So individual growers will kind of be ranked and they get priority. And then there's like a ranking all down the list of growers. So usually if you have higher market share opportunity, your product would be prioritized for either being put on the floor or for going to those pre-orders. And that kind of, it keeps it so that the growers have more opportunity, the opportunities kind of spread across the growers that way. And then we also have something called AIM crops. So that's always in market. And we have about 35 AIM crops. So those crops, we basically always want to have those on hand in the market because we know that the demand is high for those. And what's great is, like I said, with the regional variation in the microclimates, when one grower's done, then the next grower, can bring their product because they have it coming on.
Okay, cool. Do growers set their own prices or does the market set the price?
It's kind of a combination. They can influence the price, make recommendations, but it's kind of a collaborative effort between, the staff in the market and kind of seeing price comparison, what the market will bear. Our ultimate objective is to make sure and try and increase revenue for our growers across the board. So having competitive pricing, but also, getting the growers the most that they can get. Because it benefits us too. I mean, if we can sell it at a higher price, we're getting 30% of that, then yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay. Oh, I just think these are I just try to think of all the questions that came to my mind, or trying to think through if somebody's out there trying to start a co-op, the kind of decisions they would have to make.
Yeah.
Are you looking for more growers?
Yeah, so we have 19 right now, and we do have a couple of consigners that we kind of have waiting in the wings. We have 3 provisional growers as well. So we've got about 22 growers that we're regularly working with and that are part of it. And I think right now the consigners are growers that have product that's very unique that none of our growers have. So, and we also like to have consigners so that the market goes through changes. Some of the growers that have been around, so we have 6 growers, I believe, that are still a part of the market from 2011. So they're, I don't know what the turnover rate, looks like, but it's always good to have growers that have experience, that have an interest and make sense and would be a good fit for the market. It's kind of like a mutual decision between the board and the membership, and making sure that the floral standards are upheld by the growers. So yeah, we have a grower interest form online, and then it's kind of a deliberative process to add new growers, new consigners, and that kind of thing. Because we don't want to take away from the existing membership and, their earning potential.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. I figured there's always kind of a push-pull between wanting to have new growers and people wanting to preserve the markets that they've already worked to build. So I can see that.
Yeah, it's a dance.
On the buyer side of things, how do buyers get access to the market? I mean, by this point, you've been going for 15 years. I would assume most of the established florists in your area already know about you. But if somebody didn't and just found out about you, or somebody started a new florist shop or something, do they have to apply to get your fresh list or get access to the digital sales platform? Or can they just come in and browse? Or how does it work on the buyer side of things?
Yeah, so I think originally it was only for wholesale accounts, the market. But now I think in the last couple of years, we have retail hours as well for the public shopping. And those hours are from 10 to 1, but we're not going to turn people away that are the general public. But then we open at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. And florists, wholesale accounts, they usually will sign up on LFM because that is our database for tracking everything, sales, what revenue the growers are generating so that we can pay them. We have logistics on our LFM platform. So what happens is a wholesale customer will set up an account on there, and then they have to upload their business information so that they can, not be taxed and that kind of thing. But anybody can sign up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if you are a public customer, so not a business, that would be tax-free, you also are paying, I believe there's a different markup for them. I think it's a 30% markup for public customers.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So our prices that are listed are, when we send out like our availability, those prices are wholesale prices. So the public would pay an additional percent on top of that.
Okay. And so just looking at the website, and you mentioned you have a full-time sales team. I'm curious, does the team do outbound sales too? Like, do they try to make sales or like find new customers and stuff like that? Or are they strictly inbound sales, like taking orders from established customers?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So we actually went for the first time to the Northwest Flower and Garden Show this year. And it was our first time. We were the only vendor selling cut flowers. And we also sold quite a bit of drieds, and we sold our book, the Floral Standards book. And so it was a really good, I think, networking opportunity for us because, we were in a really great prime location. It was really wonderful. Deborah helped us to get in there and meet all the people. So we're definitely going back next year, but we're hoping that, doing these kind of outreach, taking advantage of these opportunities, we're drumming up some more business in the community. We also have a grocery program, and we have more than 20 groceries that we sell through. They buy product from us. We work with our growers to become a part of that program. So they're getting, locally grown flowers. And then we also do a ton of outreach, digitally, and we're continuously farming those leads. And we have events. We have one event a month, usually with a designer. And those are really well attended. We started doing those last year. And so now we've made it a point that we're doing like one of those per month. And our rebrand is huge. Like, we've got a full-time marketing person, and she's doing a phenomenal job. And we send out a weekly newsletter to anybody that is part of our mailing list. Basically, anybody that's signed into the LFM has an account. They will get the newsletter unless they opt out.
Mm-hmm. Is availability communicated to buyers strictly through the LFM platform? Which, that's interesting. That's not a platform that I'm familiar with, but does that replace like fresh lists and things like that, or do you still send out lists?
Yeah, so we were also doing fresh lists, but we found that there was like a 2% click rate on that. And it oftentimes was obsolete within a day.
Yeah.
So we encourage our customers to just get on LFM and look at the availability on there, because that's going to be the most accurate or closest to real-time availability.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that in this age, like I definitely worked on farms in the era of fresh lists, but I can see how I think for a lot of people that digital sales platforms have superseded those lists for the reasons you just said.
Yeah.
So it's local farmers market?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's...
No, local food marketplace, I think is what it's called.
Local food marketplace. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that we're the only floral organization that's using it, but I think it's originally intended for produce and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sounds like it. They should have called it Local Food and Flowers Marketplace. And then they would have covered all their bases. So, okay.
LFFM.
Interesting, though, because, I know it seems like there's more digital sales platforms that are specifically for farmers now. And so I was just wanted to loop back on that, because that's not one of the ones that I was familiar with. But I guess gives people another option if they haven't heard of it, too.
It's less expensive than one of the larger ones.
Okay.
Other ones that you're probably thinking of.
Okay. Good to know. Well, I'm sure that you sometimes have to deal with product that doesn't meet standards. Does your book, Floral Standards, now set the standard for what is accepted or rejected by the market?
Yes, for sure. All of our growers use that book, and our founder, Diane, that you mentioned, she wrote the book. She's just such an expert in harvest time, harvest processing, storage, all that kind of thing. So yes, we are pretty strict about quality and the standards. And I think that it's important to have consistency so that our customers know that they can rely on us as a market and as an option, and they'll keep coming back. And there are times, unfortunately, when things are, a bit busier and we've got a full truck, and there are times where product might get damaged, but we try and mitigate that as much as possible. And if we have a customer that has an issue with some product, we will, issue credit memos and that kind of thing. So yeah, our customer service, I feel like, is really top notch.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you got to have high standards, right? Because people, you'll develop a bad reputation if you don't. So I understand why. I think it's really cool that you guys went so far as to write a book. In fact, people can buy Floral Standards from you. We also sell it. We sell it for the same price as you do. I think if people will go and look, it's I don't know, with shipping, it might be like $1 difference, or like we basically, we got communications from your market that you were coming out with this book, and I was amazed. I mean, it's like a textbook, I mean, it's a resource, and it's an expensive book. I forget if it's like $80 or $90 or something like that, which is why we decided to sell it for more or less like our cost, because we thought it was such a great resource, and it is an expensive book. And I think there's some things like it's printed in USA, and it is a real resource. It's the kind of thing that I think people can buy once and probably use for their whole careers, right? Because it has so much information about so many crops, as far as like stage of harvest, what kind of solution to put them in, what kind of post-harvest conditions. Like, I mean, it's really how to do it as far as like harvesting and holding blooms. And so like, we were really impressed with the book, and that's why we decided to just like, we buy it from you guys and sell it for pretty much the same price, just because we thought it was such a great resource, and it was already so expensive. We didn't want to mark it up. I mean, I think it's well worth the cost, but we didn't want to mark it up further. So I do encourage people to check that out. It's a fantastic resource that they could get from you guys or from us for the same price.
Yeah. Thanks for carrying it and promoting it. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, like honestly, I've been kind of surprised at how many we have sold, just being a pretty expensive book. But I think people see the value in it. There's no other resource exactly like this that I'm aware of. So honestly, I was a little skeptical. I was like, I don't know. Like, I think it's the most expensive book we sell. So I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's clearly a great resource. I was a little skeptical, but it's sold pretty well for us. So I think that speaks to just like how useful it is. And it's a great resource. So I encourage people to check that out. And I was just imagining, like, I imagine it's like when people bring things in, right? Because you've got to have standards. I mean, I know whether you're selling produce, flowers, like there's got to be standards. And so I imagine you just like pointing out the book, like it doesn't quite make the cut. But so even, but I think it's just like the title says, floral standards, it really defines like a best practices kind of standards for, even if most people are not selling through the Seattle Growers Market, but that's why I think it's such a resource for the industry, because it really like tells people what the best practices are, what stuff should look like when it's delivered. And so it's a great resource.
Yeah, I wish I had it when I was farming back in 15 years ago.
Yeah. I think a lot of people probably think that. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free.
Hey farmers, it's Lindsay from Farm Generations Cooperative. CSA season is here. Are you ready to sell your shares? I co-founded Grown By because I was tired of CSA apps that didn't do what I needed, owned by companies that didn't have my back. Grown By is different. It's 90% owned by farmers, and it's the most powerful CSA tool out there. From building custom shares based on your inventory to managing up to 1,000 members to an app your customers will actually love. Now, I know some of you are still on Google Forms and Sheets and Docs and whatever else, and I get that because it's free. But you know what? They're actually not. Because you are doing the work of entering installment payments, your customers are probably forgetting to pick up their shares, and your drop-off rates are probably high because you can't offer flexibility with vacation weeks or rescheduling. A CSA platform is worth it. You can make your customers happy, and you can focus more on farming. Check out all the ways Grown By can help you grow your farm at coop.grownby.com/farmers. That's coop.grownby.com/farmers.
This episode is sponsored by Nifty Hoops. Nifty Hoops designs and builds high tunnel systems for growers who want dependable results. What stands out is that Nifty Hoops tunnels are complete systems designed by experienced builders with the details worked out ahead of time. That means the core components are included from the start, like end walls, ventilation, doors, baseboards, and double-layer poly, rather than being added later. The tunnels are designed for real wind and snow loads, efficient assembly, and long service life. You can choose a self-build kit with guidance from written manuals and videos, or a community build where Nifty Hoops works alongside you and the project gets completed in one day. Nifty Hoops has built more than 1,500 hoop houses across the country, including many funded through the NRCS High Tunnel Initiative. They're known nationwide for predictable outcomes and ongoing support. If you're planning a high tunnel project and want it done right, you can learn more at niftyhoops.com. And now, back to the show. Are there any advantages from forming the market that either weren't anticipated or went better than expected? And I also say that it like asking about the moment that you're in, right? Because I imagine the challenges of the market at 15 years is probably different from the challenges of the market at, 1 to 5 years.
Yeah, I do think the community that I'm able to witness with the different clients and customers coming in has been really great. I think that having that like personal connection and friendly staff and people that are excited about what they're doing and the product that we're selling, I think that that's been the best selling point or the biggest advantage. I do think that I want to mention, like in COVID times, it seems like the market really took quite a leap in terms of sales and growth because, supply chains were messed up and people gravitated and probably rediscovered local. And I think that that was kind of a defining time for us, even though, COVID was awful. But for the market and for local florals, I think that that was an advantage. I'm curious to see, if tariffs and high cost of logistics and fuel, like what kind of impact that might have for might be an opportunity, another opportunity, not ideal the way it might come about, but by having local product and it being consistent, and it's not necessarily going to be as disrupted by these, global things that might be happening.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. I mean, the tariffs have been on for, I want to think, going on a year now. Do you think that's impacted your business? I mean, I would assume that for you it would be positive because you're not importing. Has anybody said to you that they're buying more domestic flowers because the tariffs are higher on imported, or is it too early to tell?
Yeah, I don't think I would know that necessarily. I have heard, this is anecdotal, but like that weddings season is kind of slower or different this year. I'm not sure what's impacting or influencing that, but like there's not as many scheduled, but there's some a lot of last minute weddings are popping up or events are popping up, which, yeah, it's interesting. And that's kind of the beauty of having local and variety and high quality is, we've got so many different florists and designers that know that they're going to get the unique stuff and that we can supply them with it quickly. You don't have to have this advance order necessarily. You can just come in and browse or pre-order by a week or two, and you're going to get it, from the local growers. And it's good to keep the money in the economy, like the circular economy. We're supporting the florists, and their money is going back into the economy just as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've see those things about how like dollars spent in your community tend to circulate in the community. And so that's obviously a really great thing to be participating in the local agriculture scene. So 15 years in, what are the challenges for the market at this point? And what do you hope for the future of the market?
I think the biggest challenges are those hidden expenses. The growers, we're seeing increased sales. Revenue is up for sure. Like it's over 10% higher than compared to last year at this time. So that's great. But, if I'm looking at the books and analyzing it, and it's too early to tell, but like just because we were seeing a 10% or 15% increase in revenue, does that necessarily translate into that much additional money in the growers' hands, or is it going to be eaten up by other costs going up as well? So I think it's that finding that balance and where those maybe hidden expenses might lie. And so it's kind of been interesting to kind of look under the hood and see maybe what can be, a cost saving and that kind of thing. But we also are a little bit limited on space. I mean, believe it or not, even though we have like, over 5,000 square feet, when it's peak growing season, we are busting at the seams. So like we can only sell so much with the space that we have. So trying to figure out, what does that look like? How could we expand? What would that look like?
Okay. Right, because you're in the middle of the city. It's not like you can just like put up another building or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And rent is high and electricity is high.
Yeah, I can imagine. Gas is really high too right now. Actually, that's another thing I wanted to ask you about was the delivery. So I'm assuming if people buy through the market and come pick up, it's the flat fee, or basically how does delivery work? Is it like a surcharge or something to have the flowers delivered?
Yes. I don't know the exact answer to that. I think it's like above a certain price point, we can do delivery within a certain area.
All right. So people aren't just like ordering 2 bouquets and asking them to be delivered.
No, we don't do like a florist type thing. Our deliveries mostly would be like a florist would, call and have, I don't know, a standing order, let's say of over $300 worth of product. Then we'll deliver to them.
Okay.
And then we deliver to our grocery customers. And what we're trying to do is we offer our growers actually like a discount if they are sending their product back from an area that we're already delivering to for the grocery program. So we're trying to maximize and get as much cost savings that we can pass on to the members as possible. And we did revise our pickup rates from our growers, but in our membership meeting, which was actually at the beginning of this month, it was mentioned a few times, like we need to probably look at fuel surcharge. I mean, because this time last year, compared to this time last year, we're, I think it's like 27% higher diesel prices.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds about what it is here, I'd say.
Yeah. And it is a service that we provide to our growers, but we are still kind of losing money, and it would just eat into that, potential dividends for them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate you telling us about the co-op, just because I think it's a great trend. I feel like it's something that I'm seeing. I won't ask you to speculate about whether it's a trend unless you really want to or not. But what I'll say, from our vantage point, we're noticing at the magazine, I feel like we're getting a lot of new signups from people with, like such and such flower farm in the name. So like we can, that's one way we can tell. It seems like we're getting an increasing number of signups from flower farms, and we're trying to get a handle on like why. I mean, it's great because we've always been, since the magazine was founded by Lynn Basinski, who wrote The Flower Farmer. So she's always, we've always had flower content and vegetable content in every magazine, partially because that's the way she did it. So, flower growers are one of our 2 important audiences. And it just seems like, I'd love to know why. It just seems like a lot of people are starting flower farms right now. Maybe the way that sort of like the locavore movement back in the 90s. I feel like a lot of people, seems like there was a growth in vegetable farms around that time. And so I don't know why now. I can't explain it, but it seems like we're seeing just a lot of more people starting flower farms. And so I think that's like my theory is that there's just an increasing critical mass of flower growers. And so just now that there's more around again, it's a really smart thing to do to band together with some type of co-op or collaborative, with other growers. I should say, yeah, I think a lot of people are starting flower farms now, but there also was a big decrease. Like what I mentioned at the beginning about the Andean Trade Act. Like I remember being at the ASCFG conference and people talking about how the minimum wage in like Colombia had gone up and it's now up to $3 or something like that. So it's really hard to, for domestic growers to compete when, the competing product is able to pay, like a fraction of what growers were. And I know that when that whole trade deal kicked in, it put a lot of flower growers in this country out of business. I can't remember if I mentioned this when we chatted before, but In my previous life, I worked in the seed industry, and so I probably went to California more than any other state because there's a lot of it. It was in the vegetable. I was on the vegetable seed side of things, and so there's obviously they grow a lot of vegetables in California. And so I can't tell you how many times I went into a greenhouse with vegetable growers who would say like, "Oh yeah, this is an old flower greenhouse," and it's not until now. I mean, I can remember multiple times people and visits people telling me that. And it was really only now that I'm more involved with the flower side of things. I'm like, oh, now I realize why a whole bunch of flower greenhouses got vacated, because they started that trade program in the 90s, which actually I'm trying to get either a professor or there's a book that's been written about it. I'm trying to get somebody to come on the podcast so we can talk about the details, because it's a topic that's probably worth its own episode. But, I mean, the basics of it is that they subsidized, or in some cases made imports of flowers from some of the Andean countries, I mean Colombia in particular, but the other countries in the Andean region. They basically prioritized and dropped some of the tariffs that would normally apply to those kinds of flowers coming into the US. And the idea being that people would grow flowers instead of growing coca. I've also heard, this is another reason why I want to get somebody who knows more about this on the pod, that it hasn't been very effective. So it's sort of like, okay, you compromise the whole American industry for a noble goal that's probably sounds like it's not working. So that's why I want to get somebody on to actually talk about it, because it's such, that would really change the landscape. Like, let's say if that program were dropped, that would change the landscape once again for American flower growers. So I appreciate you telling us about the growers market there, just because I know, I'm sure there are older and more established co-ops, but I feel like you guys are, at 15 years in, you guys are look like you're pretty established and making progress. So I think there's a lot that people can learn from you guys.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find the market, either online or social media or wherever you'd like people to look you up?
So our website is seattlegrowersmarket.com, and we've just rebranded, as you mentioned. And then we're also on Instagram. Sophie does a wonderful job of sharing content in very artistic ways on our Instagram at Seattle Growers Market. Yeah, and then I can be reached. My email address is on there. It's gm@seattlegrowersmarket.com. I'm happy to field any questions or pass people on to, the founders or people that might know more of the history than myself.
Okay, well, that's very kind of you to offer, because, I imagine people are going to listen to this and might want to emulate you guys. So, all right, well, Carrie, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and tell us about your great market. So thank you so much for that, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.
You too.
All right, thanks, Carrie.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Growing for Market podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please consider giving us a follow and a rating or a review. It really helps others find the podcast. For more tips and tricks from farmer to farmer, check out our magazine at growingformarket.com. Whether you're a commercial grower or just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market magazine for the nitty-gritty of growing, marketing, and the business of market farming. We publish 10 issues per year with articles written by experienced farmers on topics ranging from tools and techniques to farm business operations and marketing. If you've been listening to the Growing for Market podcast and haven't yet checked out Growing for Market magazine, we've made a change so you can try the magazine for free. We've added a free month to the beginning of all first-time subscriptions. Try out the digital or paper magazine for a month, and if it's not for you, cancel within 28 days and you'll never even get billed. All subscriptions get you a year of the magazine, plus 150 downloadable back issues from the last 15 years and over 1,700 archived articles. With digital subscriptions starting at just $39 a year, head on over to growingformarket.com and subscribe today to benefit from over 3 decades of writing by farmers, for farmers, in Growing for Market magazine.